Hey everyone, so this is another video on critical appreciation of the poem Daddy. Actually, Daddy is a very well known poem of English literature which is written by Sylvia Plath. And the outline we will cover in this video are like this. First of all, about the poetess, then critical appreciation, and at last, conclusion. So, about first of all, I will let you know about Sylvia Plath. So, she was born on October 27, 1932, in Boston, Massachusetts, US, and she died on 11th February 1963 at the age of 30 in London, England. Her pen name was Victoria Lucas, and by occupation, she was a poet, a novelist, and a short story writer. Her language was English, and alma mater was Smith College and Newham College, which is situated in Cambridge. Her period was 1960 to 1963, only 3 years. And then her genre was poetry, fiction, and short story. Notable works by her are like this: The Bell Jar and Ariel. Her notable awards are Fulbright Scholarship, Glasscock Prize, and Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Then critical appreciation of the poem Daddy. So we will cover these following points. First, summary, then theme, simile, metaphor, imagery, rhyme, and tone. So here is about summary. Sylvia Plath uses her poem Daddy to express intense emotions towards her father's life and death, and her disastrous relationship with her father. The speaker in this poem is Sylvia Plath, who has lost her father at the age of 10 at a time when she still adored him unconditionally. Then she gradually realizes the oppressing dominance of her father and compares him to a Nazi, a devil, and a vampire. Later, the conflict of this relationship continues with with her husband, which led to a short and painful marriage. In Daddy by Sylvia Plath, the author illustrates her feelings of anger and resentment towards her father and husband, along with being oppressed for most of her life through her poetic devices of vivid metaphor, imagery, rhyme, tone, and simile. I hope you have understood about what the poem Daddy is all about. Actually, she is showing her anger on the dominant power of her father after his death. And here we will go with the theme. So, the theme contains the following points. The main themes of the Daddy include the following. And here is first death. So, the theme is death, first of all. The poem's speaker says she has had to kill her father, but that he died before she could do so. After which she tried to reunite with him through suicide. Next is ambivalence, an emotion pulling the speaker and the reader along with her in opposite directions is the essence of the poem. It is difficult not to see the dominant feeling of the father figure as pure hatred. Again and again, negative, destructive images are summoned. A ghastly statue represents him and is restricting, remote, and unreachable. By these following lines, we can understand her feelings like this: I never could talk to you, the tongue stuck in my jaw. I have always been scared of you. The number of allusions to Germans, Nazis, and brutally throughout the poem is astonishing. And yet, amid all of this, the intensity of the obsession indicates how central the father figure is as an object of a kind of desire. At one time, she prayed to recover him. Later, she states, every woman adores a fascist. The man she sees as a recreation, a replicant of a father is the one to whom the speaker says, I do. Both men are vampires. Here, both men means first is father and next is husband. The undead who have drunk her blood, and she has both loved them and killed them. Next theme is history and myth. The historical background of Daddy is overwhelming that of World War II. This is linked to the speaker's personal story, as the Germans tortured and killed the Jews and Romans. She herself has been tortured, and so she merges with the uh, persecuted groups and imagines herself one of them. More distantly, the father figure is linked with mythology and religion. He is a sea god rising from the freakish Atlantic, but one she sees as a parody of the worshipped divinities of the past. He is a bag full of God. If the personal story of the speaker is contextualized within history, the central event of her imagination, World War II, is contextualized within history overall. The assumed town of her father's birth has been devastated, scrapped flat by the roller of wars, wars, wars. Maine's legacy is one of the endless violence here perpetuated in the story of an abused woman. As a kind of summation, the vampire myth is also is associated with that story. Men have been vampires, drinking her blood and draining her of life. But as in legend, they have been destroyed with the stake in the heart. The lines are like this. And the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Next theme is despair. Through the poem expresses a kind of victory in the revenge inflicted upon the father and husband. It is a hopeless revenge. In the final line, the speaker celebrates the father's death, but the victory is hollow. Few readers arguably would think the closing statement is anything but a despairing cry that nothing positive has been accomplished. In saying, Daddy, I am through, the speaker is both saying that the legacy of the father has finally been destroyed, but that she has, well, is finished. Being through has multiple connotations. It is as if the father, in his harshness and cruelty, was all she had to live for. And now that his life and his life as it existed in her mind has ended, so has her life. It is an forgivingly grim conclusion. Here is another theme, which is sexuality. Many readers will sense a sexual undertone to the poem. The work contains obsessive, repetitive phrasing, and the emotional arc too, means ah you, as one would say to a lover. The father restricted the speaker, and yet she prayed to recover him from the dead. The speaker also directly links her father with the man to whom she will marry or say I do. The entire poem can be considered Oedipal, and it is difficult not to see that the speaker's feelings suggest some type of sadomasochism. One does not know if Plath is being ironic when stating every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. So this is another theme, and next is about simile. Here we have studied all five themes, and now we will moving on to the next point of critical appreciation, which is similes. In the poem, Plath uses several similes in the seventh stanza. An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to the chow, ostrich, ostrich, and Balsan. So these are all the names of the places. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. The similes within this stanza position the reader to see the great degree of suffering the speaker went through, as it is compared to the torment and anguish millions went through during World War II. And in turn, sympathy is drawn from the reader, as everyone deserves to grow up with two living parents. When Plath describes her father is like Hitler, I am always been scared of you with your Luftwaffe, your gobbled gobbled dugo, and your neat mustache and your arrant eye bright blue. By comparing her father to Hitler, Plath um, creates a parallel in that Hitler was responsible for the lives of so many Jews. In parallel, her father is like Hitler and she is like a Jew. So these are similes, means comparing one thing with another by using like and as. So this is similes. Next is metaphor. Metaphor plays a major role in this poem because strong metaphors are conveyed throughout the poem. In line 2, the speaker compares herself to a foot that lives in a shoe. The shoe is her father. Commonly, a shoe protects the foot and keeps it warm. But in this poem, the shoe is a trap, smothering the foot. The adjective black suggests the idea of death. Since the shoe is fitting tightly around the foot, one might think of a corpse in a coffin. So these are all metaphors. Plath thus feels at the same time protected and smothered by her father. Later, she later the black shoe emerges as a military boot in line 49 when the father is called a Nazi. So here we will move on with imagery. Next is imagery, and the image of the poem helps the reader to relate to Plath's harsh life. An example of this is when the devil is introduced with a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. The cleft in the foot, the devil's hooves, is compared to the cleft in the father's chin. This is developed further with the images of the father and the husband, who is like the father being a vampire, a blood sucking zombie who still haunts her long after his death. Likewise, Plath describes how her life was being drained away as the result of a marriage, similar to that of how a vampire drinks the blood of its victims. So, this is imagery. Next is about rhyme. The poem seems to have an irregularity in the rhyme. Daddy is not a free flowing poem because it is able to split it up into three separate parts. The rhyming of the O sound is evident throughout the poem. However, there is no regular pattern of which lines rhyme. These irregularities reinforce the life that Plath lived without her father. one that could speak at happiness and then plummet to sadness in a short period of time. Also, the poem is written in stanzas of 5 short lines. These lines are like Mike Tyson jab, short but extremely powerful. As an example of this, if I have killed one man, I have killed two. The vampire who said he was you. The powerful imagery of these lines overpowers any of the rhyme scheme. So, these are about rhyme, and next is tone. The tone of this poem is an adult engulfed in outrage. This outrage at times slips into the sobs of a child. This is evident by Plath's continued use of the word daddy and the childlike repetition, you do not do, you do not do, and daddy, daddy, you bastard. Fear from her childhood moves her in directions that will take her far from herself. She also brings us starkly into the world of a child's fear. She uses words that sound like words of a child staring out at behind a barbed wire snare, saying, I have always been scared of you. So these are the lines, and in tone, I would like to add some more lines like this. The tone then changes towards the end of the poem from fear to a child to a strong woman. She states, so, Daddy, I am finally through, and I knew what to do. And in the last two stanzas demonstrates an attitude of power. Plath has overcome her powers. She has killed all the self-doubt inside of her, and she is illustrating how she now has power over the memories of her father. She is confident enough to speak directly to her adversary. The tone in these lines also gives more power to the poem. Daddy, Daddy, you bastard has more effect on an audience than Daddy was bastard. And finally, we are moving to conclusion. Daddy is a negative, dark poem. However, at the conclusion of the poem, it is clear that Plath was able to resolve her conflicts. She has been able to evoke great amount of power within the poem to the readers. One can see this from her use of vivid metaphor, imagery, rhyme, tone, similes as major poetic devices. She finishes the poem with a powerful Daddy, Daddy, you bastard, I am through, showing that she was finally reached freedom. She has finally reached freedom. Means this is actually a very dark poem, but a very effective and impactful poem on the minds of the audience. Then thank you for now, and we'll meet in our next video. Thank you.